على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So tonight's chapter, if I'm not mistaken, is number 8 or 7.
Firm belief and perfect repentance from Allah. I think it's 7.
Number 7, which stays? Ayyubab. What chapter are we on? Sabr?
No.
سبعة أو
I think
سبعة باب السابع ما هو الباب السابع باب إيش اليقين التوكل ما هو أين what's chapter number 7
Firm belief and perfect reliance on Allah.
that's in English
I don't have the Arabic.
اليقين والتوكل لازم you gotta have the Arabi with the Injilizi inshallah we download a good copy for you inshallah tonight Dururi that's a must to have both even if you can't get all of it get what you can chip away at it bidnillahi ta'ala خير inshallah so باب اليقين والتوكل خير inshallah tonight maybe we'll take our time just a little bit. Maybe we'll take a few classes with regards to yaqeen. You okay? We're going to read from Bidnillahi Ta'ala, the famous work, Riyaadh Saaliheen fi manazili iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. A summary of the great work of Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya rahimahullah ta'ala. He says regarding al-yaqeen, ومن منازل إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين منزلة اليقين وهو من الإيمان بمنزلة الروح من الجسد وبه تفاضل العارفون وفيه تنافس المتنافسون وإليه شمر العاملون وعمل القوم إنما كان عليه وإشاراتهم كلها إليه وإذا تزوج الصبر باليقين ولد بينهما حصول الإمامة في الدين قال الله تعالى وبقوله يهتدي المهتدون وجعلنا منهم أئمة يهدون بأمرنا لما صبروا وكانوا بآياتنا يوقنون. He wrote a book explaining another book, a scholar who came before him whose name was Abu Dharr al-Harawi. He wrote a book about the verse in Surah Al-Fatiha إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. And this is a very important book. Ibn Qayyim's explanation is even more important, let alone the content, but the merging of the different groups and associations. And it's very important in Islam to understand this. When we talk about an imam, a leader, and we talk about his direction or his orientation, what madhab you are, or what dawah mode you follow. I follow this, I follow that. We all know the terms and the names here in this city. Okay, a man is a Muslim, but it's just not that simple. This imam is with Jama'at Tabligh. That's known, it's a well-established fact. And we have another imam, he says, I'm Salafi. It's known, it's an established fact. Then we have another imam, he says, I'm neither with Jama'at Tabligh, nor am I with Dawah Salafiyah. I'm purely Sufi. Alhamdulillah, Sufi, 100%. And then the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth and the seventh and the eighth. That's a fact. We can act like it doesn't exist. We can act like, but we all know that's how things are. In this city and many other cities in Pennsylvania, let alone outside of Pennsylvania, there are different modes, there are different versions of Islam. What's the most correct version? What's the most correct interpretation? It's not the discussion. But the discussion is right now is that there are different orientations. That's a fact, right or wrong. So oftentimes when you follow an imam or you learn from an imam, it's important for you to know that person's history and their direction. Today he's with Jama'at Tabligh, but 5 years ago he may have been with another order or orientation. He could have been with Nation of Islam, or from a Wafdeen community, or from a Sufi community, or a Shiite community, or Ismaili community, etc., etc. A brother today in the UK, hardcore, Salafi dawah, I'm Salafi, etc. That doesn't mean he was always like that. He may have come from a Barelwi background or Naqshbandi background, hardcore Sufi order. So when people discuss things and talk about things, working together or not working together, bridging the gaps or not bridging the gaps, unifying, settling our differences, etc., 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 you're going to need glue. You're going to need glue. That's a fact. And oftentimes, some of the best glue that you'll find is someone who's accepted and respected by both parties or by all three or by all four. Is this not the case? Would you not agree with this, Khalil? Ayra? Is this not the case? Here we respect him, this group, and they what? They also respect him. Regardless of Democrat, Republican, we got respect for this guy. 4 groups, 5 groups in Philadelphia, they all respect this imam, whether it's for his Quran, because of his history in establishing the masjid, cleaning up the neighborhood, whatever is the reason. But if we're having a fight and a debate and a dispute, we're going to go to the what? To the glue. He's going to settle the beef, or he's going to bring the people together. Or he may write a book. There may be a book which is accepted by all of the different groups and the different orientations. Everybody clear on this or not? And I've only named what? Just a few of the different terms and titles, let alone the different cliques and the gangs and the associations here in our city of brotherly love. That's a fact. It's reality, okay? And when I hear to discuss who's right, who's wrong, to bash anybody or to promote anybody, we're just talking about the fact that when you go to vote, there's several different boxes for your ballot, right or wrong. So therefore, Ibn Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, and there are other scholars like this, is considered to be one of those scholars that was, and obviously he lived and died in the 8th century, so we're talking about hundreds of years ago, way before Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab was even thought of. Way before this empire, these people, those empires. So we're digging far deeper now. Stay with me. We're not talking about post Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Good or bad, for or against. We're talking about what? Way pre Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. And that's extremely important for different misconceptions and different opinions, for or against. All right, tell you. So Ibn Qayyim, rahimahullah, he was one of those scholars who was respected by different groups and by different Islamic orientations. Many people respected him and loved him. Some may have hated him, and even those who did hate him, they had respect for him deep down inside, right? Just like his teacher, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah. Loved by many, hated by many, and of course most of the people who hated him, even though they couldn't acknowledge their respect, we know they had respect for him in their hearts. Is a must. It's like a warrior on the battlefield. He's fighting for a different side, a different army, a different religion, but bravery is respected no matter what. Lion heart. Was he not respected by Saladin, Salahuddin? Of course he was. He was fighting for the Muslims and the Arabs or the Kurds or etc. They were fighting for the Christians, the Franks, the Europeans. But there's no doubt Lionheart couldn't disrespect Saladin. His bravery is proven. His capability, his skill on the battlefield as a general cannot be denied, even though he's a Saracen. And this guy, Lionheart, even though he's a Frank, he comes from Europe, he's this, he's that, he's uncouth, he's a Christian, he believes in the Trinity, blah, 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 blah. But his ability on the battlefield, his skill, for him to get the title Lionheart, the heart of a lion, is something which cannot be what? Undisputable, bottom line. So Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala was one of those scholars that had a great deal of acceptance, even to this day, but back then, among different groups. And the orientation of Ibn Qayyim is also important with regards to what he used to be. And it's a known fact that Ibn Qayyim was a Sufi. He's a devoted Sufi for many years out of his life until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed him to meet other individuals and he changed his entire direction. But him sticking with many of those early teachings and the flavor, the atmosphere of it still what? Remains. And is one of the reasons why he was still loved and accepted by the group that he previously had left. So he wrote a book in which he spoke on the depth and the dimension or dimensions of that one verse, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. The different levels and the different stages of spiritual guidance and enlightenment, such as yaqeen, sabr, shukr, mahabba, ijtiba, right? Okay, sakina. These different words and terms, and every word and term in itself is considered to be a what? A station of spiritual ascension. Everybody with me or not? Of spiritual ascension, a different stop. The book I can share with you guys. We've done many classes from this book over the years. Well, alhamdulillah, many lectures. Directly quoting from him, translating from him, let alone indirect influence with me not quoting him. The book, a big part of it for sure is in English. I'm not sure if the entire book is in English, but a big part of the translation is available. All right, so he gives this word al-yaqeen in Riyaadh Saaliheen, obviously, and FYI, talking about timeline, chronological order. An-Nawawi came hundreds of years before Ibn Qayyim. They weren't from the same era. They were not contemporaries. Nawawi died in the 7th century, 676. So he came before Ibn Qayyim, and that's also important to know. And the scholars who came before Nawawi, وهكذا. So he devoted a chapter in which he explains in depth manzilatul yaqeen, the station or the level of certainty or sure faith, whatever English translation or English rendition that you give it. So he says about al-yaqeen, listen carefully, and we don't want to spend too much time or lose any extra time on the book, let alone the background of Ibn Qayyim, which is extremely important, but we just don't have that much time. So he says that the status that yaqeen has towards iman is that of, or the status of the soul to the body. The place of yaqeen in one's iman is compared to the place of one's soul to one's body. Now, you've heard before that sabr, the importance and the status of patience towards Islam, bi manzilat ish, ar-ra'si min al-jasad, is the station of the head to the body. But he says yaqeen status is that of the what? The soul, the ruh, more than just the head. Do you understand? The core, the life force of one's iman is based off of what? Yaqeen. So that's the name of the game, beginning, middle, and end. He says, and with yaqeen, the arifun, the learned people, and obviously that's a term that's used by different groups, different associations within Islam and different orders of Sufis, they use the term arifun, those who have ma'rifah, knowledge, right? He says that with yaqeen, the men of knowledge and understanding, he says, tafadalu. That's what makes one better than the next. Not muscles, not how handsome you are, not where you come from, but the thing that gave precedence to one learned spiritual person over another, he said, was nothing more than what? Yaqeen. That's what defined the men from the boys. And that's what defined the ranks and the levels of the actual men that were already divided and separated from the boys. He then says, and those who compete, that is their racetrack. That's what they're fighting over. They're all rushing to get to the finish line before the next person. Yaqeen. He then says, and that is the reason of the cause, that's the goal of those who wish to roll up their sleeves. Shammar. Tashmir is to roll your sleeves up, meaning to get busy, to get dirty, to get your hands dirty. It's time to get to work. Let me roll up my sleeves and let me get to work. Whether you're working under a car or whether you're about to eat. You ever see brothers do that? At the dinner table, they just don't wash their hands, but they what? No doubt, because it's time to what? It's time to do damage. All right? This not the case? All right. So he says, shammara. The people who wish to work and sweat and tire themselves, that was their goal, getting higher level of yaqeen. He says, وَعَمَلُ الْقَوْمِ, and the people's deeds and their actions, all of it was based on yaqeen. Al-qawm, we know he's talking when he says the people. Amal al-qawm. He then says, and everything that they talk about and speak about and discuss and debate about goes towards yaqeen. Talking about the different Sufi orders. Everything, their whole entire order is based off of reaching what? Yaqeen. And the different levels of yaqeen. And there are other religions like this as well. And other faiths, such as Buddhists. Everything, their whole way is based off of what? Enlightenment and renunciation. That's why they relinquish things from the worldly life. That's why they meditate. That's why they seclude themselves. And they believe that a person has to reach enlightenment. I'm enlightened, right? I'm awoke now, a new me. The lotus flower comes from the mud, right? And then within the level of enlightenment, there are levels of what?
Enlightenment.
The yogi is not like the average monk. And it's someone above the yogi. You get the point I'm trying to make? So I'm trying to make a comparison here. In Buddhism, everything that they talk about and do, the way that they dress, what they eat, what they don't eat, from A to Z is pointing towards one thing and one thing only, and that's what? Enlightenment. So Ibn al-Qayyim says that the people, whether they call themselves Sufis or other names and terms, everything that they talk about and speak about and deal with, isha'aratum, is pointing to one thing, and that's what? Yaqeen. You get it? That is the ultimate bullseye for the archer, is hitting that mark and reaching that mark and levels of accuracy. He then says, listen carefully, and when sabr, he says, when patience marries yaqeen, when they get married, they have a child. They have a walad. They have offspring. And that child is what? Is leadership in the religion. Imama. When yaqeen marries sabr, they get together, the nikah. After the walima, everything, this consummation, the woman conceives, she bears a child. And that child is a person being an imam, a leader in a religion. Please, no notes. Jazakallah khairan. Copyright infringement will be quite severe. I'm sorry, what? Quite severe. Don't let me catch you, writing anything without my permission. Explicit written permission. That's what they say, right? Don't let me catch you selling my stuff. Tell you. So he says that the child that they rear, that they bear, is al-imam, a person being a leader, not someone just being an imam of a masjid, imam of a country, a leader, a prime minister, but an actual, real, true imam in the deen, a person who's guided and a person whom Allah uses. Just think about this concept, this word. Allah is using you. Think about that. Allah uses you for His religion, to guide His servants, to help His servants, to bring people away from misguidance to guidance. That has to humble you. Allah uses you, makes you an imam in the religion. And that imam, it only comes from the stock of sabr and yaqeen. So guys, you see the direction in which we're going. Ibn al-Qayyim, he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, Allah states, and we made from them, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً. We made from the previous nations that we talk to you and speak to you about, O Muhammad, in the Quran. وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ, from them, the previous people, the ancients, أَئِمَّةً, imams, يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا, guiding people to our path, to our way, with our permission. لَمَّا صَبَرُوا, because they were patient and they had yaqeen in our ayat. So that is how a person becomes and remains a leader in a religion, having certainty and having patience upon that certainty. This is the vision. This is what needs to be done. This is what happens to be done. And this is what I'm willing to give up and sacrifice and be patient upon in establishing. From the lowest level to the highest level. That's a leader. A leader is the one that knows the tough decisions that have to be made. And the leader is the one who's willing to sacrifice to make those tough decisions, even though it hurts him and pains him on the inside. But it has to be done. Like we said earlier in the khutbah. I love these troops. They're like my own sons, but you got to send them in the battle. It's no way. We have to take the fortress. Bottom line. He has yaqeen. That's where victory lies. He knows it. He sees it. Even though the common soldiers or his subordinates, his cabinet, his advisors, the officials that are under him, they may have doubts. Oh no, it's too risky, it's too dangerous, we have too many casualties, etc. He says the victory is there. Send everybody in. What do you mean? We won't have any army left. He says what? Send them in. That is yaqeen. And he has to have the sabr upon what it costs for that victory. So that's just on a lower scale, on a worldly scale, let alone the religious, spiritual aspect. So a person becomes a leader in a religion, and they remain a leader in a religion, and there are levels of leaders with these two things. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, وَخَصَّ سُبْحَانَهُ أَهْلَ الْيَقِينِ بِالْإِنْتِفَاعِ بِالْآيَاتِ وَالْبَرَاهِينِ فَقَالَ وَهُوَ أَصْدَقُ الْقَائِلِينَ وَفِي الْأَرْضِ آيَاتٌ لِلْمُوقِنِينَ. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He made benefiting from His signs, benefiting from His verses, benefiting from the lessons and morals exclusive to the people of yaqeen. Those who lack it don't benefit from the Quran. Those who don't have it, they don't get much from the Quran. Rather, the Quran could have the exact opposite effect. Lead people into further misguidance. Make them even more blind than what they previously were. And the only people that learn and benefit from the Quran are those who have what? A yaqeen. And say either you got it or you don't. It's just that simple. He then says, Allah says, and in the earth, with al-ardi, upon earth, in the earth, there are sure signs for people of surety. Lil muqinin. It isn't a sign for a kafir and a munafiq. It's not a sign for a skeptic. It isn't a sign for someone who has so much doubt. It isn't a sign and a proof for those who are trying to debunk Islam and prove that it's not true and it's just made up. They're going to be misled from it. But those who want it, who seek it, who yearn it, they clearly see the signs. وخص أهل اليقين بالهدى والفلاح من بين العالمين فقال والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. Another virtue of yaqeen is that Allah Azza wa Jal made guidance and success exclusive to the people of yaqeen. As he mentions in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, أولئك هم المفلحون. They are the successful. Period. Those who believe in that which has been sent down to you. Those who believe in that which has been sent down to the messengers before you. They're the only ones who are the muflihun. And if you're not on the winning side, then you're what? You're on the losing side. وأخبر عن أهل النار بأنهم لم يكونوا من أهل اليقين فقال تعالى وإذا قيل إن وعد الله حق والساعة إلى آخر الآية. And he says, furthermore, is that Allah has told us about the people of the hellfire. Is that it will be said to them, they will be asked, they will speak, etc. Is that they didn't have yaqeen. They lacked it, and that's why they're in hell. فَالْيَقِينُ رُوحُ أَعْمَالِ الْقُلُوبِ التي هي أرواح أعمال الجوارح وهو حقيقة الصديقية وقطب هذا الشأن الذي عليه مداره. He says, so therefore, yaqeen is the soul, the spirit, the life force of the actions of the heart. And the actions of the heart, they are the souls and the spirits of the what? The gears and the sprockets of the limbs. You get it? We talk about a control center. This controls this part of the engine or a car, and this little button thingy, what? Controls that one. Ignites this one, sparks this one up. You get the point? So the heart makes the limbs move, right? The gears and the sprockets, the heart. But what causes the heart to move? What is the life force of the heart? What's the core kernel of the heart except for what? Yaqeen. So we're talking about innermost of the innermost. You with me or not? Innermost of the most innermost. Yaqeen is the foundation. وروى خالد بن يزيد عن السفيانين عن التيمي عن خيثمة عن عبد الله بن مسعود عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. طيب, moving forward. Then Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, he goes on to make his discussion with regards to what yaqeen is, how to get it, how to obtain it. He says, وَاخْتُلِفَ فِيهِ هَلْ هُوَ كَسْبِيٌّ أَوْ مَوْهِبِيٌّ. And then the people of knowledge and the different Muslims, Sufis and non-Sufis, etc., they differ on what exactly or how exactly a person gets yaqeen. Is it kasbi, something that you can earn and gain? Or is it mawhibi, something that's just given to you? You have no hand in it. Or is it a mixture of both? Something that Allah blesses you with, and you have a responsibility for honing it, maintaining it, and allowing it to mature and to grow. Are you guys with me or not? They differ on this. فقيل هو العلم المستودع في القلوب يشير إلى أنه غير كسبي. وقال سهل اليقين من زيادة الإيمان ولا ريب أن الإيمان كسبي. والتحقيق أنه كسبي باعتبار أسبابه وموهبي باعتبار نفسه وذاته. So he quotes those who say is that yaqeen is the divine knowledge that Allah plants in the slave's heart. The divine knowledge that Allah plants, mustawda, Allah deposits in the servant's heart. And that obviously is a clue towards that yaqeen is what? Given. It's a gift. It's an endowment. And then others, they say, is that yaqeen is a fruit of one's iman growing. The better you do, the more consistent you are, there is ziyada. Your iman flourishes. And obviously, iman flourishing, they say, is from your what? Kasbi. You earned it. You earned the money. You didn't inherit it, right? You earned the money, opened up the shops, made yourself your own success. It's a difference versus I inherited it from my father, a spoiled brat. Disrespectful, half-wit, has no right to the throne. But at the end of the day, that's my what? That's my father. He's going to be the next emperor. That's why people have different revolts and rebellions. This guy cannot become the leader of the country. He cannot become the sovereign. He cannot become the king. He cannot be the shogun. He'll lead the country into war if we allow this child to run everyone. And his argument is that I'm his son. That's my father. Whether you like it or not, I deserve this. That's not the peasant or general who made this coup, who made this rebellion, and he literally fought his way to becoming the dictator or the emperor of the country. He earned every single step of the way. You get it? So they differ on where does yaqeen come from. Is it directly only from Allah? Or is it something which the servant has a hand in gaining and earning it? And Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, he selects the view, and this is the HadithDisciple way of detail. It all depends. It is from the slave's doings from one aspect, and it is a divine gift from Allah from another aspect. How it started off, where it came from, it being maintained, and it being allowed to grow and to flourish from another aspect. Everybody got that? That's right, moving forward. He quotes more things. What we want to talk about, bidnillahi ta'ala, Allahu Akbar. He discusses, and we may not have enough time for this tonight, the different types of yaqeen, right? Aynul yaqeen, haqqul yaqeen, and yaqeen by itself. What determines haqqul yaqeen from aynul yaqeen? All right? لَتَرَوُنَّهَا. You will see it. Right? You'll see it. Aynul yaqeen, haqqul yaqeen. Right? We'll get there perhaps. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So Ibn Qayyim here, he goes on to speak on the virtues of it and what the earlier Muslims said about it and how they understood it and how they practiced it. He then says, khayran, moving forward. See how much time we have? We'll discuss this hopefully next week and maybe in another lecture, or maybe we'll just go back to Riyaadh Saaliheen and explain those hadiths. This was just like an introduction to the chapter. The importance and the seriousness of yaqeen and how Nawawi, may Allah have mercy on his soul, chose to mention tawakkul with yaqeen. And obviously there is a correlation between the two. The stronger your yaqeen, the stronger your tawakkul will be. One man says that that's reckless. That's irresponsible. How can you do that? How can you put yourself in danger? Maybe it is according to worldly standards. But the other brother, he's not thinking about it. He's not imagining it. He knows. He's seen it. He saw it. No doubt about it. Bi-idhnillah. By Allah's permission, this is what's going to happen. Like I made the example on the battlefield. The general who's talented and skilled, he sees the victory. Everyone understand this? He sees the plant, the flower before the germination of it, right? He doesn't just see victory when it's in the sight of the common herd. He sees it before, and then he goes after, and other people are doubtful and skeptical about it. So tawakkul, putting your trust in Allah. One brother says, that's reckless, that's irresponsible. And another brother says, this is what I got, bismillah, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go overseas and study. One brother says, save up more money. Don't go yet, Mufti. Real life story. Don't go. You need to save up more money. You need to be more responsible. You can't go overseas and then come right back. And another brother says, no, you need to go right now. This is the best time for you to leave the country. Leave right now. You don't got that much money? Don't worry about that. You don't have this plan, that Allah take care of that. You just leave. You go. The money will come, etc., etc., etc. So these different things, these different concepts of tawakkul are going to be relative. Bravery is a thin line, or it's going to be on the borderline of recklessness. There's no doubt about that. And wisdom and precaution is going to be close to cowardice. May not be cowardice, but it's close to it. I'm being cautious. It's not time to move in yet. It's not time to attack yet. You say, oh, you scared? You're a coward? You're afraid of getting injured? You're afraid of, no, I'm not scared, but I'm not reckless either. It's a certain time when to move. And the brave man is saying, forget all that other philosophical stuff that you're talking about. Bismillah. So it's going to go back and forth. It's relative and subjective. But there is a clear connection between tawakkul and yaqeen. We talk about business, being a merchant, getting married, seeking knowledge, taking a risk, jumping out there. You have to jump out there. And one of the reasons why you jump out there is because you believe in Allah's promise to take care of you, to look after you. You're doing something for His sake, for His cause. You're sacrificing something to please Him. You have to have some guts. You understand what I'm trying to say? And that comes oftentimes from one's yaqeen. I know what Allah promised me. Do you know? I know what Allah said about the one who does this. Have you read that? I believe in it. Do you believe in that? Etc. So this is just food for thought for the youngsters, young men, aspiring youth. It's food for thought for the older brothers. It's food for thought for the men, food for thought for the women. And we're talking about the foundation of our aqeedah, the foundation of what we believe in, and why so many people are not Muslims and they don't believe in Islam, and why so many people use science to prove why Islam and religion at large is false, because they don't have yaqeen, they lack faith. All right, so we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to grant us this and to bless us with this. You can go back to the book if and when you like, and read more about it yourself based off of what I have given you already. Wallahu a'lam. Inshallah, we'll take some questions. Sabr, inshallah. Sabr and what? Yaqeen. Patience and certainty. Bidnillah. I got you, Sheikh. I wasn't saying that to you. I would never speak to you like that. Tayyib. Any other questions? Fadl, Sheikh.
Now, from the very beginning, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu accepted Islam without having to be convinced. So he almost had yaqeen from the very beginning, would you say?
That's a proof for those who say that it's mohibi, it's a gift. No hand that the servant has in it.
And then later, in other times, it manifested.
And grew.
Yeah.
And wahakadha.
Whereas Umar,
Clear. Crystal clear. It was shown crystal clear. That's definitely the right thought track with regards to which of the two does it belong to. Wahakadha.
But what about Ibrahim?
As well. As well. And I mean, there are things that we as servants can understand, and there are things as servants that we what? We can't understand.
Then Khidr, that's
It's a long discussion, Sheikh. The Arifun. Khidr. Was Khidr a prophet or a wali? A long discussion. Tayyib.
But he was of the Arifun.
No question about that. There's a fact. He had some things that Musa didn't have. And of course, that's a tremendous story, right? We've done some classes on that before. Maybe we need to do more on that story and the concept of emptying the cup. That's the manifestation of emptying. He's the Nabi of Allah, Musa, Khalid of Allah. Allah gave him things exclusively. And Allah told him, our servant Khidr knows more than you in certain things. So that's something that we as brothers, myself, others, is something very hard for us to do, to humble ourselves. You come in as a master in somebody's dojo, get on your knees, kneel down, whatever, humble yourself. This is your art, your technique, but you don't have this technique, right, Sheikh? You gotta empty the cup, humble yourself. Eat some humble pie if you wanna gain more. That's a tremendous story when it comes to learning, and Allah knows best. Not saying that it's permissible to kneel to somebody or to bow down to somebody. You get the point I'm trying to make. And Allah knows best. Right, any other questions? Faddal, Furqan. Allah bless you.
Hey, so is consistency a trait of yaqeen, or it is yaqeen itself?
Consistency, is it a trait or is it the yaqeen itself? It could be both, to be honest. The fruit is going to be a manifestation of the seed. And from one aspect, the seed is the fruit. Meaning, for a person to be consistent upon doing good, that's a manifestation of yaqeen. And at the same time, that's the fuel behind it. And it is certainty in itself to keep doing it. It's going to go back and forth. But brothers who come and go, Allah says, and from men, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ. There are men who worship Allah on the edge of the cliff. If good comes his way, اطمأن به, he's happy. And if fitna comes his way, he flips and crashes. That's scary. People, they come in and go and they practice Islam when it's convenient for them. All right, may Allah hide our faults, make us better, and forgive us all. Ameen. Wallahu alam. All right, let's see what we got online. If there are no questions from the sisters, Fadl Sheikh.
Go ahead.
Fadl.
Okay.
Fadl. Bismillah.
Because y'all got something more.
La, elders come first, Sheikh.
Okay, then I'll take that. In terms, this is about the takbirat. Until which day do we takbirat?
Takbirat is going to be during the days of Tashriq, the days in which you celebrate for the Eid, and they're going to stop after Asr, before Maghrib on that third day of celebration. The day of the Eid, the 10th, then there's the 11th, 12th, and 13th. So technically speaking, it's going to be 4 days. 3 days after the actual day of the Eid, technically speaking. So you're going to stop your takbirs after Asr, before Maghrib, on that third day of the Tashriq days.
So are there any takbirs from the beginning of the month till now?
From the beginning of the month, those when the takbir should be made, Shaykh, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. The concept of when exactly and how exactly you make the takbirs, there are details on that. There are details on that. You understand what I'm saying to you, Shaykh? But in general, start after or during the Maghrib of the Eid, the eve of the Eid. Wallahu alam. As far as before that, takbirs before that, don't do. And Allah knows best. That's in brief. Can you clarify whether or not the people praying behind the Imam have to make rak'ah for forgetfulness? They follow the Imam. If the Imam makes the sujood, the prostration of forgiveness, that's what you do. And if the Imam doesn't, then you don't do it. If you came late and you made a mistake or you forgot something that was away from what the Imam did, then perhaps that's a different story. But the general rule is, if you come in on time with the Imam, even if you made a mistake, you forgot about something, you have something doubtful in your prayer, you make the salam with the Imam, period. As far as if you caught only one rak'ah with the Imam, and you had 3 more to make up, and you made a mistake in your second or third or fourth rak'ah, then that's different. Once the Imam makes the taslim, you're free from him. You're no longer forced to follow and to obey his every movement, etc. And Allah knows best. That's in brief. Question from Milan states, initials OC from Buffalo, New York. Can a person pray dhuhr on the day of Jumu'ah if they want to pray? Because I usually pray dhuhr on Jumu'ah too. No. You make Jumu'ah and that's it. Khalas. Next question is coming from, all right, that's it for YouTube. Let's see if we got anything on Instagram. Fadl Talut.
As regards to what you was talking about, being cautious and recklessness, and between when you were saying, one is leaning towards
Not this one.
being like, cowardice, or being cautious. In these days, as in regards to the fitna of everything that's going on in the city, would it be safe to say that to be as in regards to that, or that's only from a religious standpoint of view, to be cautious as in regards to where you go? Should you not still be like, oh, I'm not going to leave this, as in regards to even dealing with COVID and everything like that, but specifically with the murder rate and things like that that's going on?
For sure.
Should we be cautious?
No
Is
doubt.
that a sign of cowardice?
It's applicable in all aspects, universally. But it has to be a balance. Has to be a balance, okay? Has to be a balance, okay? Too much precaution, too much, no doubt, can become cowardice. And oftentimes people who are scared and afraid, they hide behind caution. If you're afraid, just say you're afraid. It's okay. And oftentimes people are reckless and they don't have the necessary sabr. It takes sabr to be precautious. It takes patience to hold back. Self-control isn't easy. Right or wrong? Sheikh, you agree with this? So it's hard when you want to just go out of rage, to think with a level head, to strike when it's time to strike. That takes a great deal of self-control. And somebody who's enraged or incensed with anger, he's burning up on the inside. And he says, not yet, it's not the time yet. That takes a great deal of self-mastery. Great deal of self-mastery, not losing your temper, right, etc. So there has to be a balance, and it's all about a ratio. And I'll tell you that a big part of this seesaw is going to be based off of personality. There's some brothers who have a higher percentage of bravery than caution. Recklessness, fear, there's no thought of the consequence, period. When I see him, class. And other brothers, he's not like that. His personality is more calm. No, let me think this through. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not saying don't do nothing or say nothing, but just try to pick a good time. So that's universal, but it's always going to be subjective. One brother wants the vaccine. He wears a mask. He doesn't want to come to the masjid, or he practices social distance. We can't shame him. Can't shame him. Even if you disagree, you can't shame him. He's basing his precaution off of something. And the other brother says, look, man, when I see my brother, I'm giving him a hug. Tony, what's up? What's going on? That COVID stuff, all right, whatever. I'm going to get sick if Allah wants me to get sick. You can't shame him for having that attitude. And you can't call him reckless, because he's basing his actions off of that. That's a fact. No doubt. In ratio, and most importantly, personality. Personality. Fadl.
As regards to the 10 days.
As far as gun violence in the city and other parts, I mean,
So you shouldn't go to.
ego.
Like if I'd be like, oh,
Ego. And we know that ego will get you killed. And we know one of the most truthful statements of wisdom is, he who fights and runs away lives to fight another day. That's a fact. Sun Tzu, he mentioned this about he will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. And in different chapters in the book, in which he talks about strategic movement, warfare, whatever, is that if the sovereign commands you to advance, and you know that advance is a means of ruin and destruction for the army, you're not to obey him. And if he tells you to retreat and to run, and you know that victory lies ahead, you're not to obey him. There are orders of the sovereign which are not to be obeyed. And just think about us, our tradition, our culture. The Prophet ﷺ told us, إِنَّمَا طَاعَةُ فِي الْمَعْرُوفِ أو بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Obedience to your leader is only in ma'ruf. And this is not ma'ruf, this is munkar. This is madness. Look, he says, go. What are you talking about? He says, retreat. The enemy is on his last leg. All we got to do is just tip him over. He says, time to go home. I can't obey you in that, Sheikh. Whack at that. So ego is a big part of recklessness and ruin. And a person throwing himself head first. And unfortunately, we've lost too many young brothers, family members, because of ego. I'm not scared. I'm not afraid. You scared? Okay, sure. Tough guy. Bullets don't discriminate between tough guys and cowards. That's a fact. They do not discriminate between who's brave. So the one who lasts and survives is the one who's the wisest. And hikmah, of course, is always superior. Hikmah is always superior.
the 10 days, as regards to the 10 days as being the best days, I think it reported in a religion, I can't recall where, that these days, if you fast these days, or is it one day, then it's like 2 years of sins forgiven. Is that the whole 10 days that you have to fast, or is that the one day?
As if you're asking about Arafah.
Okay,
That's different. That's one day.
one day.
Yes.
If I fast that one day.
Yes,
it's a
Arafah.
comparison of 2 years.
Of forgiveness, etc. That's Arafah. Arafah. And Allah knows best. We have classes on Arafah in detail on the channel, talking about the fiqh of Arafah, etc. Anybody else? All right, Tayyib. You got your hand up, Sheikh? I'm sorry. Fadal.
Could you talk about the rewards for sacrificing for Eid?
The rewards of udhiyah, of sacrificing. Well, first and foremost, some ulama say that udhiyah is obligatory, that you don't have a choice. Some hold the view is that sacrificing an animal is a must. Some scholars, another group, they say, another madhab, they say that sacrifice is mandatory upon those who have the extra money. And there's a difference between the two opinions. The first opinion is you got to do it no matter what. And you're only excused if you don't have the money whatsoever. And the second opinion is that you don't have to try to get the extra money, save up. But if you have the affluency, then you have to what? Sacrifice. So those who hold this view, they're going to say that udhiyah is obeying Allah and His Messenger. And we all know the rewards and the virtues of obeying Allah and His Messenger. As far as just the virtue of udhiyah, then there's several. From them is following the way of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. And we all know how close Ibrahim was to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we all know how fond the Messenger of Allah sallallahu was of Ibrahim. He named his son after him. When his son was born that night, he says, I've given him the name of my forefather or ancestor, Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. So Ibrahim had a special virtue. And of course, the concept of forgiveness, the concept of offering something for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that being a major manifestation of your love for Allah. The animal, its costs, making the animal bleed, feel some type of pain. You're proving and you're showing that Allah is more beloved to you than anything else. And that's something that many people don't get. People who sacrifice for other than Allah, they make shirk. People who talk about animal cruelty, they just don't get that point of sacrifice. So these are some of the virtues of udhiyah. Sins being forgiven, gaining rewards, doing good deeds during the first 10, etc., etc. And Allah knows best. That's in brief. Tayyib, before we start, is it time for the adhan? Okay, inshallah, we'll stop here. Last question, a few questions we'll take. One is coming from London. AK, initials AK from London. What's the ruling on disobeying work rules? Example, no phone usage. However, the shift is 12 hours and one wishes to use it for reading and reviewing ilm. Don't read your phone. Bring a book. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Carry a book. Carry a Kindle. Not the phone, no. Inshallah. You can benefit 12 hours. You're idle, doing nothing. Nobody's coming. But they said no phone. Follow the rules. Unless you have to break them. There's other ways of reading and benefiting. And Allah knows best. Initials AA from Toronto, Ontario. Assalamu alaikum Mufti. If I'm praying Dhuhr at home, do I need to move spots when doing the sunnah, or is making tasbih to break up the prayers good enough? We explained that last night. Moving, speaking, etc. Either or. And if you do both, perhaps that's best. Initials. Tayyib. All right. Fadl, Sensei.
Number one, is Eid, making the Eid prayer, is that fard ayn or kafaya? And also, the 10 days, the first day, in other words, brother, there was no sighting of the moon nowhere in the world. So, they added a day. Okay, so that made a difference between the 9th and the 10th of July. And so, where did that level out at in terms of later on, calendars will be conflicting with one another?
Clear.
You see what I'm saying? As time goes on, but it seemed like some kind of way during the year, they always seem to assimilate back.
Understood. Understood. As far as the first part of the question, is Eid fard ayn or fard kifaya? Then there are different views of the ulama of Islam. They don't agree on the ruling of Eid. Some say fard ayn, everybody has to go. Man, woman, child. And there are others who say that it's an obligation and a responsibility upon the Muslims as a whole. There has to be an Eid. There can't be no one's doing the Eid, everybody's off. But as a whole. And then there's some who say that the Eid is just recommended. The first two views are going to be the strongest. It's either going to be one of the two. Fard ayn, every Muslim must go. Woman, young, old. And if it's not that view, then the second one is that it is a sign of the strength of Islam. And if the Muslims all together, collectively neglect and abandon the Eid, they're sinful. And it shows that Islam is extremely weak in this town or this village or this city. So it's going to be one of the two. It's going to be one of the two. Fard ayn or fard kifaya. And with our modern technology and different products that Allah has allowed us to have, many of the excuses that will prevent a person from going to the Eid of the past don't even exist anymore. The hadith mentions about a woman who doesn't have a jilbab. She doesn't have another garment. Which one of us, our wives, sisters, mothers, daughters, aunts, aunts, our women folk, the females in our families, which one of us men can say that they don't have at least 2 overgarments, let alone a woman herself? Who can say that? You know anybody? Your wife, your sister, your ex-wife, any woman that you've come across that has only just 1 overgarment in her closet. You know anybody? You ever came across anyone? Just 1. I pray in it, or even 2, for argument's sake. When I have my menstruation, I wear this one, and when I'm clean and pure, I wear another one. The average have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 type of overgarments, colors, styles, dresses, etc., etc. So the hadith says that a woman who doesn't have a jilbab, the Prophet ﷺ says, لِتُلْبِسَهَا صَاحِبَتُهَا أَوْ أُخْتُهَا مِنْ جِلْبَابِهَا. Her friend is to lend her one. And this hadith proves, according to those scholars, is that Eid is fard ayn. And from those who defend this position staunchly is Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. And he uses this hadith among others, proving that there's no way it's a sunnah. That's totally weak. And there's no way that's just fard kifaya. If there was an excuse not to go, then a woman with 1 overgarment would be excused. And the Prophet ﷺ, hadith Atiyah, that we were commanded an nukhrija, to take out everyone from the house. Women on their menses, old women, young virgins, women that are kept up, locked up in the house. The concept, you're not going outside, you stay in the house. I don't want nobody seeing you. I don't want you to mix with boys and you gotta go to the Eid. Proving that it's fard ayn. And if someone had an excuse, then those women, 1 overgarment, or the menstruation, etc., they would be excused. And the Prophet ﷺ clearly told them to do what? Go out and witness the good of the Muslims and the supplications of the Muslims. So it's going to be one of the 2, either ayn or kifaya. And the view stating that it's fard ayn is no doubt is clearly supported by the proofs and evidences from the direct hadiths. As far as the second part of the question, then that's a difficult issue because from one aspect, we're supposed to look for the moons. And we're not supposed to rely upon calculations. We're not supposed to make our religion to be, set in stone with calculation, let alone the general shunning of astronomy and astrology in Islam, and the constellations and the calendar, almanacs, etc. There's many problems included in that, and a lot of shirk and kufr included in that system of calculation. At the end of the day, the problem comes in Hajj. A person says, I'm going to look for the moon, but when you go to make Hajj, you're going to make Arafah when they say it's Arafah. You're going to be at Muzdalifah when they tell you it's Muzdalifah. Then you're not going to say, well, in my country, my imam didn't sight the moon, or I didn't see it. You're going to follow them. And there are hadiths that support this, that Adha Yawma Yudahi Nas, the day in which the people slaughter, meaning the group, the Jama'ah of the Muslims. But if you're not making Hajj, you are in America or Canada, you do have your own community, and you're trying to implement the sunnah of looking for the moon yourself, you have to stick with that. Even if you're wrong. You're not being wrong intentionally. You're trying to implement the sunnah as a community. You're trying to establish your own independence as a community or maintain what you already established years ago. So it can happen. A discrepancy can happen. The sticky part of that will be on Hajj, for sure. And you definitely have to sacrifice your personal view and opinion because of the Muslims there. You have no option. Even Ramadan, if you went to Pakistan, or if you traveled to Armenia or Chechnya or whatever the case may be, you're among the Muslims there. They're saying Eid is tomorrow. Well, I came from Philly, I have an extra day. You must break your fast and make Eid with them. And then you make up your fast later on by yourself to keep the Jama'ah, to stick with the unity of the Muslims there. But if you're here by yourself, you're not making Hajj, and you base your calculation, your time calculation off of the sight of the moon, you stick with that. Stick with that for sure. And and this is one of the problems of lack of central leadership among the Muslims. It's going to be differing. And when there's central leadership, the leader says, Khalas, the Eid is tomorrow. Bottom line. There is no, it's tomorrow. And if he's mistaken or wrong, he gets the sin, or his sin is forgiven if he's mujtahid and you have no sin upon you. But obviously that's not how things are. And there are levels of central leadership. This masjid has central leadership. This masjid, this majlis, etc., etc. But we're talking about as a whole. So I would say stick with that which you feel is correct, even if it causes to be a day before, a day after. And of course, it's not as bad as Ramadan. But you still have the same problem, and that is in Saudi Arabia right now, it's the day of the Eid. And a person in his country or city says, well, I didn't sight the moon, we're going to do the day after. That's problematic. That's a fact. And that's because whether you like them or not, that's where Hajj is. Whether you're against them or for them, that's how Allah made it. Hajj is there. So there has to be some respect and some regard given to their calculation, whether you like it or not. That's just being brutally honest about it. Someone says, I don't like the Saudis, I don't trust them, I don't want to follow them, that's fine. But Allah did not make Hajj in Bosnia or Bulgaria or South Africa or Karachi or Islamabad. Allah placed it there, and you just gotta accept that. That's a sandwich that you have to eat. So how comfortable will a person be during Eid on another day, and he's watching the television, and the Muslims have already made Eid there, making Hajj? It's going to be a little what? A little problematic. Allah knows best. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Wa barak ala abdi wa rasulih nabina wa imamina Muhammad.